Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we are here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relations through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer at the Center for Victory. Here with us today is one of our senior executive consultants, Christie Cawley. Today we're going to be going into a topic that's near and dear to both Christie and I. We've seen it a lot in the workplace, but we've seen it a lot just in people's personal lives, but we've also experienced it in our homes, which is just this overwhelming stress that people are feeling kind of right now. We're like 18 months into COVID, lots of stress, and just how to deal with that. So Christie, it's kind of start off with what you're seeing, and even if you want to give some personal examples here. I know you had some good stress that you just went through, but maybe some examples of that too as we talk about this. But talk about work, professional, things like that.
Sure. Yeah, well, good morning. Thanks for having me. And it is a topic near and dear to my heart because I think we can all relate to it, right? We're human, we're complex creatures. And, we have this experience called stress all the time in multifaceted ways. Sometimes that stress is good. It's a lesson for us to kind of learn what we're capable of doing. So it's stress that kind of builds strength. It's kind of like working or toning a muscle you didn't really know you had. And then after you kind of go through the grind, you're like, oh, yeah, it's feeling a little bit stronger now. And then there's some stress that can really feel like strain, where it's actually doing some damage. And we have to kind of regulate the difference between the two, I think, by being mindful of kind of what makes us tick and how we're doing. Are we starting to feel really tired out? Are we tired even though we got a good night's sleep? So kind of keeping in mind some of those like physical manifestations of stress to kind of regulate how you're doing. So speaking of good stress, the kind that I think builds strength and character and capacity. So I sent my daughter off to college and my stepdaughter got married. So it's been a wild month and we're doing pretty well. So, but I think as people are going through it, we're going into fall. We'll be setting back our clocks coming up. If you remember that, put it on your list, Eric. And I think it's time to kind of reset for ourselves. We're going into, end of third quarter, beginning of fourth quarter for a lot of companies, end of year, chock full of the holidays. The pandemic still surrounds us. So what are the holidays and what's that going to be like? And how do we do it in a healthy way? And so I think just kind of getting yourself in the best space that you can going into this period of year would be really helpful. So I don't know if you want to talk about some tips or some practices you and your family have, Eric, but I think that's a good topic.
Really think about rolling it back. Obviously you had that good stress and we kind of celebrated that with you, but there's a lot of emotion involved with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I know it was tiring. Not everybody knows you, but talk about how that can be like a lot of things are good, but then where is the tipping point where it's like, hey, we just got to kind of roll this back. Mm-hmm. People thought, a lot of people would think, hey, look, remote work, that's good. I'm working from home, but there's other challenges with that. Because some people had kids, maybe you don't have daycare, maybe you're trading off with your significant other or whatever. Maybe you don't have a designated office that you can go to and you're picking up, so you don't have that organization. So what has been your experience about how we should reset? And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, hey, look, we're going into the fall. Mm-hmm. Lots of holidays for people, lots of getting together. What would be a couple things that you would say, hey, look, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, and pay attention to this?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the most important thing is to manage expectations, right? I think it's if of all years, of all time frames, of all kind of stages in our world, I think right now managing expectations is probably a really strong tip for this topic as well as many others. I think sometimes, especially with, the wonderful access that we have to social media, to, TV shows and movies on demand, right? The Hallmark channels, tuning it up with a new episode like all the time. And all of these idealistic representations of what everything should be, right? What life should look like, what the holidays should look like, what being part of a family looks like. And I think, those are, they're fun, they're entertaining avenues, but I think kind of managing expectations for yourself, what's important to you, kind of knowing your truths, knowing your decision gates, like what would getting together this year look like in a really healthy way, right? And maybe it's not all the extra. I think that's one thing that's been a real benefit of the past 18 months, I think, for many people. We've had to almost take stock of, kind of a simpler way of living, maybe not by choice, but by circumstance. And I think there's some real beauty that comes out of that. So I think having conversations with your loved ones, whether that's your circle of friends, whether that's immediate family, whether it's extended family, whether it's people in your neighborhood who've become your family, how can we connect, relate to one another, and support one another in this period of time? What does success look like?
Yeah, we could just focus on that.
We could just focus on that, right? But I think it's
such a great,
so powerful.
Yeah, because I see a lot of people, because when we don't have that connection, like in work environments, some people put added stress on them that doesn't need to be there.
Right.
I've watched my kiddos, who will both graduate college this year. I've watched them put some really just out of character, out of expectations on themselves of like, you really didn't need to do that. Where did that come from? And the nice thing about it is we've been able to talk through it. A lot of people don't have that, and that just continues to spin out of control. But having those up front, I know even last week with family time, we finally got to go to a Penn State game where my son goes. Right. And you've got all the, you've got these huge crowds, and it's like, well, do you really need to stay for the whole game or not? And we decided we didn't need to. I mean, it was not a huge blowout by Penn State, but I mean, it's like, okay, and you've got all these different aspects of things you have to measure, right? Of, there's the sun, there's the heat, that's that stress that could go into the evening. There's just the tiredness of staying around all those people trying to get out, and leaving just a little bit early, managing those expectations, what that does to the rest of the day. Right? For us, it was getting in somewhere earlier to eat, not having to wait as long, having some great time at the end of the night just to hang out where we were at, all of us.
Sure.
Those were good things, and manage the expectations at work, right? What am I supposed to do? If I don't know what I'm supposed to do, some people just work too much and then they get frustrated. It's like, the work expects too much out of me. Well, you didn't ask anybody.
Right.
And it's just, you put it on yourself, and then, it then becomes just that self-fulfilling prophecy where I'm doing too much. I'm stressing myself out. Everybody else thinks I'm doing well. So I see that a lot professionally and personally. And that's why it's such a huge thing, but it doesn't have to be these huge things. That's why it's just these little things that get in the way sometimes of, very good. But it's funny, as we're talking about our kids, at college. And so Allie's coming home for her fall break coming up next weekend. So I'm very excited about that. And it was so funny. I said, are there some things you want to do? Some restaurants you want to go to? You want to go to the museum? You want to see a show? Like what would you like to do in your week? And she's like, Mom, it would be great. Can you make chili and cornbread? Now, for those people who don't know me, I really am not much of a cook. So the fact that there's something that I can make that she wants to eat is really a surprise.
But the fact is, it is the simple things.
Yeah.
And so it's the little things. It's that, special recipe, or it's the conversation, or it's your favorite blanket, or whatever it is. It's time. And I think that that's where in the past 18 months, we've really just seen a beautiful thing emerge. People actually getting so much joy out of just the presence of being around other people. So I think if we can kind of look through the lens of our work relations, there's a lot that's on people's minds right now that hasn't changed. So meeting people where they are and trying to guard ourselves against making broad sweeping assumptions on what expectations might be, what needs might be. Have a conversation, right? So tip number 2 is actually reconnect with the people who are closest to you, and have a conversation and really listen to understand through that conversation what's important to them. So maybe it's, what do you really want to accomplish in fourth quarter?
Mm-hmm.
What's reasonable? What would really feel satisfying to you? You can have that same conversation in your own home. You may have been working, room to room with other people, or sharing the dining room table, as your makeshift offices for the past year, and, trying to figure out when you have to be quiet for the other person. There's a lot of juggling going on right now. And I think sometimes, rolling it back and reconnecting, like, hey, what do the next couple of weeks look like to you? What does getting ready for fall look like? What do we want to do? Do we want to change things up here? So sometimes that rolling back can also be, maybe I want to reorient kind of my home office right now. Maybe there's a different view I want to get. Maybe I just want to sit on the other side of the table for a while. It can be just little changes, but kind of change your perspective on things.
Yeah, a big perspective change when we stop traveling, at least.
Huge.
For me, it's like, I got a lot of week left.
Right.
It's like, what do I do with that? It's just fill it in.
Right. We fill it up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it will get filled up.
Yeah.
Right. And, that reconnecting piece is so valuable. I know for us, I would just add on to there something that you mentioned earlier with, even the social media, and just staying out of the news, and because that can stress you out as well.
Yeah.
All the crazy stuff. It doesn't have to be that way. One of the things that our kids said to us was last summer was fantastic, because we couldn't go anywhere. So we had to be with one another. We chose to, do a lot of fun things together, and they were simple, fun things, but allowed us to get reconnected. But it played into that first one that you mentioned, managing those expectations. Hey, look, we're all in this together. Don't watch what you hear, because a lot of that's just really fear-based.
Yeah.
What's up in front of you right now? Like we have this time to connect with one another.
Mm-hmm.
What
do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
It really was a fantastic time for us. I know it wasn't for everybody.
Right.
And I'm not trying to say it should have been, but I mean, it was a fabulous time to take that time and just reconnect and find some fun things to do. And I think what came out of that for us actually was maybe some traditions that will carry on even when our kids have kids.
Yeah. Well, it's the pandemic has not been equitable, right? It has not been the same experience for everyone. And I think for, none of us can assume what other people should learn or experience through any of this. But I think, difficult journeys often lead to beautiful destinations. And you just have to stay on the path long enough to figure it out. And so I think managing expectations, reconnecting with the people who are meaningful in your life, right? And then number 3, I think, is to give yourself permission to say no, right? I think
it's talking about that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing when you finally can feel comfortable just saying no. And not feeling shame over it or feeling a burden over it, but just, owning your own emotions. And you'd want other people in your life to be honest with you. If they weren't up for something, you'd rather know that in advance, right? So I think, be that friend to yourself. And again, it's, take this time, but take it for you. It's supposed to be kind of, if we were bears, we'd be getting ready for hibernation, right? For a reason. It's just kind of like decompress and kind of rest and find some peace. And that can be very difficult when there's a lot of noise around. So even for extroverts like myself, sometimes we need to quiet the noise. And just find some peace, whether that's taking a walk around your neighborhood, whether it's looking at old pictures, right? And reliving and rethinking about, happy memories, taking some joy in what you have, practicing some gratitude. I think all of that goes a long way in kind of shaping your mental state and your filters that you use.
Yeah, that's fantastic how those all fit in. It's almost like you planned that.
Just talking. I had a little cup of coffee this morning.
But they're so valuable. I know we could continue to talk about it, but maybe we do it another time. But
sure,
just to kind of go over those, and I don't know if you want to say any more about any of these. So it's managing expectations to really roll things back. Let's do a check this fall, going into the holidays. Managing the expectations, taking time to reconnect, and then finally giving yourself permission to say no. Fantastic. I mean, I think if you do any one of those, you'd have a significant move in a good way. All three, definite good.
Good trifecta. Yes, absolutely.
Definitely good things to pay attention to. And let's end it. What was that quote that you said earlier, Christie? I want to end it on there. Difficult journeys, what?
Often lead to beautiful destinations. All
right, let's end it on that. So that was a good place to end, I think. And thanks for coming on. And hopefully we can continue to go over this subject, because it is one, it's near and dear to our hearts, but I think a lot of people just need a little help now and then, and just to get reacquainted with ourselves and what we're really here for. So again, guys, managing expectations, reconnecting, and then permission to say no. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, listening. Make sure you leave this video a like there, and leave a comment down in the section below if you want to hear more. We'd appreciate it if you'd also hit that subscribe button. For more information, you can get us at centerforvictory.com. That's centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. Talk to you soon.